Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Hands Across the Water. Special guest with me today, Gaz from the Fourth Official. How you keeping, mate? You all good? And thank you for coming on.
No, very well. I think we've been saying over on the fourth official that 2026 has been much better than 2025 already. So long may that continue. But no, it's a pleasure to be on. It's always good to be talking Rangers.
It is, mate, and especially now more than ever, as you said, it's a good time to be following Rangers with all the followers, all the listeners, yourself, mate. We've had tough times, especially over the last decade or so. It hasn't been very many happy moments, but it looks like we're maybe turning the corner a bit, finally, guys.
No, absolutely. And I think that in our kind of podcast community world, it's always easier and more enjoyable to talk about the good times and victories rather than trying to polish up yet another Russell Martin performance and trying to make sense of it and get half an hour or 45 minutes worth of content out it. So, yeah, it's a lot easier when things are a bit more positive.
Yeah, 100%. And as I said, it started off with the game yesterday with a bit of a surprise signing. We say a surprise. We knew it was happening. We just didn't know when they were going to do it. And Rangers decided to do it at the very start of the game. The What do you think of these three guys then, mate? I know you probably know your stats and all a lot better than myself, but just looking into them, look like three quality signings from Rangers. Looks like Andrew Cabin is really backing Danny Role in the market.
And I think that's the thing we needed in this window. We didn't need more squad bodies. We didn't need more people to come in and play 20 minutes here and there. No disrespect to people like Lyle Cameron, for example, but we needed ready to go first team players that would uplift the quality of the starting 11 and then hopefully bring along some of the other players that are in that starting 11 along with better players of quality alongside them. So Andreas Skov obviously is the headline, the marquee signing. He's 26, 40 caps for Denmark, massive pedigree, albeit has struggled in Germany with Wolfsburg. But he's not the first and he's not the last to have struggled in the Bundesliga. But he's got all the pedigree, he's got all the potential to be a really game-changing signing for us between now and the end of the season. And then having that option to buy him in the summer, and by all accounts, he's a player who seems to want to be here, which I think makes a huge difference, unlike previous loan players like Malik Tillman and Václav Cherny and Abdullah Sima. You never really had the feeling that they were going to be long-term propositions for us other than just an uplift in quality for that season there and then. So the fact that he seems willing to want to have his career at Ibrox now, and the fact that he's got some connections with some of the players that are already in the squad from previous times, and we've got a bit of a Scandinavian collective now within the squad. So that is hugely exciting, and I think we're all looking forward to seeing him on the park in the Dundee game next weekend. Chukwani is a bit more of a slightly unknown quantity. But again, he's a player that's coming with a bit of pedigree. The guy's played a lot of first team football in Sturm Graz and before there, again, an under 21 international. So a bit like Diamandi, you're getting him in at a decent price where you've got the potential there that a couple of good seasons and you can flip him and part of this player trading model and you can maybe make some decent money on someone like Chukwani. And then Ture Rommins is, again, proven quality, a decent age, but with lots of football behind him. And he'll give massive depth in an area of the park that we were massively needing depth at left back, albeit Jude Magoma's done really well this year. But again, he's a lone player. We don't know what the future holds for Jude Magoma, but we needed another body in that position, and he's someone of proven quality from the Belgian league at Westerlo. Issam Shirai, former Rangers coach, speaks very highly of him. And I think all three come in, all three probably start most games between now and the end of the season, and that can only uplift the quality of that starting 11.
Yeah, 100%. And it seems to be, guys, that they definitely went for the bigger players. I think even Olsen there is 6'2". And that's what we've been missing in the league, hasn't it? We've seen sometimes players with 10-year frame and they get bullied very easily in the Scottish league. It's all right being tricky and stuff. You can do all that, but but it's a physical game. It's a whole different ball game in Scotland at times, isn't it? Really, and it's good to see that we've actually went for players that should be able to hold their own in this division, not just by
Yeah,
what they can do on the pitch, but also physically.
of course, and you need that presence, you need that physical stature to do well, not only in Scotland but also across Europe. Now, you've very few teams you see that are small in frame and small in heart, and no disrespect to some of the players that have maybe come and gone from the Rangers squad over the last kind of 24 months or so, but what you see now under the 49ers group and Andrew Kavanagh and Parag Marath is that they're buying athletes and players that have got a bit of presence about them. It's taken a bit of time, obviously, for someone like Manny Fernandez to settle and get into the side, but you see the threat he can be from set pieces, and quite rightly, you've seen the praise that's been given to Scott Fry and the set piece coach for how dangerous Rangers now look at set plays, whereas in recent seasons, a Rangers corner, you'd be as well just giving the ball back to the opposition in terms of a goal kick or whatever, because we were just no threat whatsoever. I remember a game at St Johnstone maybe 3 seasons ago, and we had 21 corners in the first half, and not one of them looked like creating anything. So it's changed days now, and you've seen that 15 goals from set plays so far this season, another one last night. It's just testament to the work that we're doing in that area.
Yeah, 100%. And I was also thinking, it's a Rangers for the last few seasons, guys. It's always been, as you said earlier about the loan signs we brought in, it was always like dismantle everything and restart again next season. And, we're always sort of starting behind. We're trying to get like maybe 12, 13 players in at times, trying to bed them in. And by the time that happens, you've early rounds in the Champions League and stuff, and you're just not ready in time. And, in the league, you can start slow because you're trying to get people used to it. But I think it's good that we've got some of the players who we maybe thought maybe a few months ago weren't good enough have obviously improved under Danny Role, Trimidi, etc. Then you've got these new guys coming in as well. So I know we've a big title fight coming up. It's going to be hard. There's no guarantees. I think we're going to give it we've got a good chance, as good a chance as anyone. But it really, for next season as well, guys, it gives us a platform to not be wasting 9 games at the start of the season like we've done this season. You've something to build
100%.
on from the very start.
You can't afford to have a rebuild on top of a rebuild on top of a rebuild, and that comes not only from on the park but also in the dugout as well. And I think it's very early days, and Danny Rule's won nothing yet, but it's been positive signs that he's managed to get a tune out of some of the players that obviously weren't performing under Russell Martin, and whether that's down to Russell Martin's complete lack of tactical awareness of what's needed within the SPL to win games, or the fact that Danny Rule's been a bit more pragmatic. He's stripped it back to basics. He's looked at, well, what can the players I've got actually do, and then go out and actually do that. But then he's recognised, well, what's missing from the squad, what mistakes were made in the summer in terms of the types of players that we needed. We needed more than one left back. We absolutely needed someone to play right wing, because we've all seen, as impressive as JD Gassama has been at times, a right winger he is not. And that was again proven last night, even against a League Two team in Annan, that JD Gassama is not a right winger. So we needed someone who that was their position, someone who can come in and replicate the impact that Václav Černý had in that position from last season, where he's given you goals game on game, he's given you assists, he's given you goal contributions. That's what we've needed, and that's what we've been badly missing. And whilst we've managed to grind out results and win ones and twos, last night was probably the first time, albeit against much weaker opposition, where we've gone and we've put a team to a sword. And that's something that you want to then do against your Dundees and your St Mirrens of the likes of home games, where Rangers teams of the past would go in and they'd win 3s and 4s, and you'd feel very comfortable, rather than hanging on and hoping that you can keep the 3 points, which is what we've seen. It's very early days, as we say. Danny Rule's won nothing, but he's managed to get us back into the conversation. And given the fact that the prize is there, should we win this league this season of automatic Champions League qualification, I can understand the board rolling the dice a little bit and saying, well, here's some money in this window, go out and win this title, given what we're seeing across the city, given that Hearts have found themselves in a decent position, but they've got some issues now with some injuries, not the biggest of squads. Then they've not been there and done that in the past. So we'll see what happens over the end of the season. But it's going to be a massive fight between us, Hearts, and that lot across the city to get to the end of the year. And what we've done now is we've given ourselves an opportunity to be in that conversation, which none of us would have thought back in October.
Yeah, 100%. Just quickly, sorry, Jackie Bobo, thank you very much, mate, for becoming a member before we come on live. Sorry, I didn't notice that, mate. It didn't pop up, but thank you very much for becoming a member. And if anyone would like to, the links are there if you want to, guys, and follow us on a lot more content. Yeah, I'm just looking there, guys, as I say, mate. What talking about Danny Roulder, and what I really like what you said, and I agree with 100%. He simplified things, didn't he? When he first came in, as you say, he wasn't trying to get Rangers to do things they couldn't do. He made it very basic and went, well, okay. And the first European game, I think he just played it out at the very start. We got a whopping away from home. It was sort of go, right, let's let them play and we'll see what they can do. I think very quickly he caught on that, okay, there's big issues here. And he started to maybe worry more about, let's make us really hard to beat, going five at the back and stuff. And then maybe we can nick a goal. And to be fair, it's worked, but it proves that the guy, he hasn't come in to try and wave this magic wand. It's been just simple fat. Where are we good? Where is my team really good? Where are the not so good? And let's focus on where we can defend. And it's working out a treat for us so far, mate, isn't it, Liam? But hopefully these new players can then, obviously get us up the pitch more, creating more chances. But it was all about what have I got and how do I make the best out of it. And he's done a fantastic job, guys, because coming into January, I was just hoping personally, I was like, just try and keep us maybe 9 to 10 points there, because I wasn't expecting us to get much more, not especially with the 5 games. But the fact that he won all those 5 games and he's got us right in the mix is quite incredible.
Yeah, the reaction from Tynecastle has been excellent. The team have done really, really well to get the results that they've got. We're going into a really crucial period of the season where we've got games that on paper we should be able to pick up points in. And sometimes that's the dangerous part as a Rangers fan, is that you've got Dundee at home and you go, well, that should be a penalty kick. And we've all been burned too many times with fixtures like that. But that's why we've rolled the dice. That's why we've gone out and got kind of proven quality out there to come in and try and enhance that first 11. Because then what that does is it lifts everyone else around there. You've seen the likes of Connor Barron, whose levels I think have massively improved this season because he's been lifted by playing alongside the likes of Nico Rashkin, who's again found some form where he was hopeless at the start of the season, whether that was through lack of effort or otherwise. So he's came on. He's going to be a big miss between now and the end of the season, but you hope that Chukwuani's going to come in and be a decent replacement there. Diamandi's another one who's found a little bit of form recently, albeit again, it's taken him a bit of time to get there, but I think the two of them were excellent up at Pataudry last weekend, and you need to hope that they've got a decent relationship and they can continue there. You see someone like Tello Asgard, who we all know has got some issues and has been guilty of hiding in games, but even last night against Annan, you see his quality there coming on, and look, that's an absolute peach of a free kick in the last minute that, let alone the Annan goalkeeper, but Donnarumma wouldn't get anywhere near that one, given the quality that's there. So these players are good players. These players can show more consistency. They can do more. They can do more game on game. But the ability is there, and it's finding a manager who can harness that ability and get it out of them on a more consistent basis.
Yeah. Just quick as well, singing the blues. Thank you very much for coming to YouTube, member. Mate. I really appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. Um, what about then? We'll go in dive a wee bit into the game, guys. Obviously, if you say 5-0 victory, what's what we were hoping for. No injuries. A few players maybe who are on the fringes were maybe trying to maybe move on. Come on. Obviously, we had there's quite a few of the guys come. There was Rothwell started, Dahl started, Danilo. Giga, obviously, who's on loan. I don't think he got any minutes at all when he was away. Uh, young Curtis played quite well. That Zebedee Lawson, is it? This young fella, he had a big massive smile on his face. That guy he thought he'd won the lottery, which I love. I love seeing players with a smile on their face. he just loved every second of being on the pitch. What's your thoughts on the likes of the Rothwells, the Dowells, and Danilos, guys? Do you think there will be a possibility of moving these guys on, or do you think Real will give them another chance? I can't see that happening, but
It's an interesting one. I think there's two camps from the game last night. I was massively shocked when the team lineup came out and Joe Rothwell and Kieran Dowell was our midfield. I think we were all expecting changes last night and the likes of Max Aarons to come in, Danilo to come in, Miovski to come in. I think that was all always going to happen. And given the likes of Tav and Jack Butland a bit of a rest because they've played an awful lot of minutes recently. So that wasn't surprised. Joe Rothwell's been nowhere near around your squad for months now. So to see him straight into the starting lineup yesterday, and do you know what? He was neat, he was tidy, but it was Annan. And so you'd expect him to be able to stand out there. I was actually quite impressed with Kieran Dowell because Kieran Dowell showed a bit of fight, a bit of dig, a bit of, do you know what? I've got quality here. And he's a player who's been on our bench now for the last 4 or 5 games, not been seen, not had a sniff of getting on the park. But what he did show us last night is that actually going forward in that number 10 position, that he's actually got a goal in him. He's got the ability to get in between the lines, scored a really, really good goal in terms of the header. And actually, I think he did more for himself last night, whether it was to get himself in the shop window for a move down. And we hear the likes of Leicester City are very keen on getting Kieran Dowell in. But he's one who's out of contract at the end of the season. Do you give him a new deal? No, you absolutely do not. But could you use him between now and the end of the year? Given Connor Barron's injury as an extra body, then potentially you let him sign a pre-contract somewhere and you use him as a body that can come in and be a finisher for 20 minutes to give someone a rest. I think he did a lot more for that cause last night than, say, someone like Danilo, who played 70 minutes, really struggled, I think, to get into the game whatsoever. I think the problem with Danilo is that I don't think injuries have allowed him to be a number 9, which is what he is. So we're now playing him slightly deeper as a number 10, but I don't think he's good enough to be a number 10. So for me, that position is going to be either Tello Asgard's, maybe Dowell as a bit of an option there. You've got Diamandi who can play if you're going to go Rashkin and Chukwani in the middle, or Mikey Moore even in a number 10 position. But I think moving Danilo on is something that we need to probably try and do, because even against a League Two opposition, he really struggled last night to get into the game. So it was a bit of a kind of strange one where players like Enciala, I think, did well and showed that, you know what, I've got something that I can contribute between now and the end of the season, as did Kieran Dowell. And players like Danilo probably let themselves down a little bit.
Do you think, guys, with the knee injury, obviously it took him a long time to come back. Do you think it's is that what's holding him back, or do you think it's maybe confidence, or being, as you said, or maybe just not being able to be the number 9, being stuck on that number, or maybe just everything all in one? You know,
Yeah,
it just
I think
doesn't seem to
it's
be there.
massively evident that injuries have completely scuppered what he did, and it kind of reminds me a little bit. Older Bears will remember when Sebastian Rosenthal came back after his really bad injury layoff, and we got about 10 games out of him before we moved him back on down to South America. He just never was the same player. He didn't have the same dynamism anymore. And whilst I still think Danilo can score goals and get in the right positions, I don't think his legs get him into the right positions enough. He's not physical enough. He's not got the legs in him to run a game. And when you're playing one up top, what you need is that kind of physicality. You need that ability to be able to link the play. That's not Danilo's game. It's not really Bojan Majovski's game either. But what we did last night was with players in and around them to allow him to play in a bit of a partnership. And what we had was wingers who put the ball on the plate for Bojan Majovski last night to do what he does. And he'll take great confidence from the fact he scored 3 goals last night. He was what, especially the second goal, which was really, really well done, and a brilliant assist from Finlay Curtis, who again showed what he can do playing in the right position. Finished the game playing left back, but it's a game that I think Finlay Curtis enhanced his reputation, and I think if he can go out in this window, get some proper game time between now and the end of the season, he comes back in the summer and becomes a real squad option for us for next season.
Yeah. Um, and as I said, a few guys in the comments are they say we can't believe there's positivity on a Rangers podcast. So everyone's it's good to actually be able to be positive, but it is exciting times, you know. What do you think about the whole the Americans coming in, the 49ers coming in, guys? You know, from the I know they made a few mistakes at the start. They got the wrong man in, a few wrong signings for me. It likes not having the left, or even our own left back, having one young player alone and stuff. But do you think that they're Andrew Kavanagh and Parag Marat and stuff are maybe looking at and going, okay, look, we've underestimated maybe the Scottish division underestimated what we needed to do and the people we needed to bring in, and they're trying to rectify that in January, or do you think spending this kind of money was always in the plans for January?
Yeah, it was never going to be fixed in one window, right? There was a lot of work that needed done, and it was never going to be sorted just in the summer. One
Yeah,
thing I think Andrew Kavanagh come out and said was that the hiring of Jim Gillespie speaks an awful lot about them learning about their surroundings and wanting someone with local knowledge that understands Scottish football a little bit more. I think at times they were guilty in the summer of trying to run Rangers a bit like a mini Premier League club, and like they did with Leeds United. And I don't think you can compare them because you need someone that's got that real understanding of what's needed to be successful in Scotland. And they looked at Russell Martin having played up here, and they gave him the benefit that now they were kind of bedazzled by his PowerPoints and his philosophies, and the same thing that happened across the city with Nancy coming in. But at the end of the day, results are what gets results in Scotland. So you can evolve the philosophies, you can evolve the ideas, but if you're not winning football games, you're not going to last up here. So they want to come
yeah,
in, they want to be successful, they want Rangers to be the number one club in Scotland. And you hear sound bites from the likes of Scov Olsen coming in and saying Rangers are the biggest club in Scotland. Well, we need to prove that on the park again. We need to start
yeah,
getting big, shiny silver things waved at the fans on a much more regular basis than what we've seen over the last 10 years. But they're in and they're wanting to be able to do that. And the only way that they make money on being in Rangers is by Rangers being in the big leagues, being in the Champions League, because you don't make money in the SPFL. Winning the SPFL this year wins them the same amount of money they've just spent on Toki Chukwuani. So you need more
yeah,
than that. You need the ability to play in the big leagues. That then gives them the ability to then attract bigger sponsors, bigger hospitality, be able to attract more prices, better players, and then it grows on and it grows on and it grows on, and then you can flip some of these players for bigger prices and then move on. So they need to get us back at the big leagues, and the way they do that is by winning this title this year.
yeah. Because I agree with you 100% there, mate. At the very, I remember at the start, people were going, "Oh, here we go." You know, these Yanks coming in. I don't trust them. They're gonna bleed the club. And I'm sitting going, Rangers don't make money. Seeing this, Rangers are winning leagues in the Champions League, winning. You know, getting to the late stages of Europa League at least. You know, and with sponsorship coming in. You don't make money at Rangers. There's no money to be made. We're a club that has hemorrhaged money and lost money quite consistently over the last lot of years. But it's going
Yeah,
to take that investment, as you say, guys. You know, to get the likes of, you know, if it's Red Bull or whoever it is comes in, you know, obviously and does the sponsorship deals. I don't know if they'll ever do a stadium sponsorship deal. I don't know if the support would want that or would take that on. I don't know what you think of the likes of that, but I think the Americans have got big. They've definitely got big ambitions for the club. But as you say, it's going to take having to invest, get it sorted, get like say Ibrox obviously with the season tickets eventually, where you're not losing 10,000 season tickets at the start of every season to across the city. You can match in with that. And obviously your sponsorships, European football and stuff, you know, but it's going to take time. But I think that they're giving it a good go, and I do think that they're they're in for the right reasons. I don't
no,
think they're in
100%.
here to make a
But
quick buck.
no, and they see the potential in getting us back to where the support believe we should be. And I think that's a really important thing, is that I think that they have been quite open, the fact that they made mistakes in the summer, but they're trying now to fix some of them and get the right people in, the right players in. Now, time will tell whether or not that's the right thing to do. And listen, we're not going to know how successful the likes of Scov Olsen is going to be till we actually see him on the park. But he's got all the pedigree and all the potential to be a really good player for us between now and the end of the season. But how many times have we signed good players and it's just not worked for whatever reason? Aaron Ramsey, for example, as someone who you can look at, we brought in January as being that game changer, and we all know what happened there. So the players need to continue to stand up and show the qualities that they've got. They need to wave those silver things at us, as I spoke about, and be there to be successful, and then that then gets them the opportunity to then move on to more richer leagues, whether it's the Premier League, whether it's back to Italy, back to Germany, or whatever, because then they've been successful, and that's why Celtic have been able to flip some players for big money, like Matt O'Reilly, because they've been successful. They've won trophies, they've played in Champions League. Now, no one's telling you that Matt O'Reilly's a better player than Nico Rashkin, but Nico Rashkin's not going to go for Matt O'Reilly money until he wins things.
Yeah, no, that's 100. Yep, correct. Just quickly, thank you, Jackie, for the £1. Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you very much to JR or GR, should I say? Sorry, for becoming a YouTube member. Very much appreciated. See, it's your gravitas, guys. You're getting us all these new members, mate. They're all here to watch you, buddy. But just quickly, guys, sort of halfway through the show, mate. Do you want to let everyone know what you do before we chat more Rangers and your websites and stuff and what you're all about, buddy, so people can find where to get you?
I'm the lead content provider for the Fourth Official. So over on our Patreon, we've got upwards of 10 podcasts per month that you can get there. You also get access to all of our articles. We've got a host of writers that provide kind of written content over on our Patreon site as well. So you can join us for $2.99 a month over on our Patreon. And I'm also the face of our YouTube channel, which you can find us. We don't do many lives over on YouTube, but we are starting to grow there. But we have had some interviews on there with the likes of Ewan Cameron, ex of Real Radio, now of STV Radio, and he's been over on there.
I watched that. Just quickly, I watched that. It was an absolute cracker. Really enjoyed all the old chat about the old Real Radio days and stuff. Absolutely amazing. So anyone, get yourselves onto that and watch it. It's a cracking interview.
Yeah, but we tend not to do much kind of match reaction over on YouTube because there are other places that kind of do that. So we kind of save that for the Patreon on an audio format. But we do kind of like daily news roundups over on the YouTube channel. So yeah, come and find us. You're more than welcome. We'd be delighted to have you on there. But yeah, me and the rest of the lads and the team on there, upwards of 10 podcasts so over on Patreon, plus obviously the ones we've got free on YouTube.
I'll ask you this one. I'll let you answer that one because I don't know if you know any information on that. And the what's that Mohan? I don't even know how to pronounce that. Mohani's.
The Motherwell striker, Mawanisi. No.
Oh, right.
There's nothing there. There's a lot of fan talk around there, but there's nothing in terms of actual concrete interest in him from Rangers, from what I've heard. I don't expect us to bring in another forward in this window unless we manage to move Danilo on. Performances like last night probably make that a bit more difficult to move Danilo on because teams will look at that and go, no, you're all right. So I don't expect that we're going to bring in another forward in this. I do think we might bring in another defender and possibly another midfielder, albeit Kieran Dowell's maybe given him something to think about last night, but at least until the summer. I think Dan Neil was someone who we're very interested in on a pre-contract from Sunderland, albeit there's lots of teams looking at him for that purpose as well. I think if we manage to get a pre-contract agreed for Dan Neil, then that probably allows us to go to Sunderland and say, right, well, what will it take to get him in now? Because he's already coming to us, kind of similar to what Hearts are doing for Rogers Mato, that forward that they're bringing in. Because they've agreed a pre-contract in for him as well. So I think that one may well happen. Otherwise, we might go with what we've got. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see us bringing in another defender because I think we all know what's going out in the summer in terms of the loan players. Nasser Giga won't be a Rangers player next season. I don't think we'll see too much of Nasser Giga between now and the end of the season. I think John Souttar and Manny Fernandez have very much established themselves as the the main partnership at the back there. You've also got Dujon Sterling who can play there. Clinton and Shala, I think, did well last night. But again, that's against a lower opposition. And I think maybe like Finlay Curtis, Clinton and Shala could really benefit from a run of 15 games between now and the end of the season, whether that's a championship club or even a team like a Dundee or a Kilmarnock or someone like that. One team he will not be going to is Motherwell, even though they've lost Stephen Welsh, but they don't have any interest in Clinton and Shala.
Yep, there you go. There's Norway exclusive for you guys. And see, I hope he does get somewhere because I think there's a player in there, and he's still young. He's still got a bit to grow, but he seems comfortable on the ball with his feet. I know he made a few mistakes at Kilmarnock last year, and the poor guy sort of hasn't had much chance since then. If we're thinking about it, but I think he'll be decent enough as the future goes
He's
on for
someone
him.
that in 3 and 4 years' time, you could see him being a player in somewhere like the Belgian league or the French league, and being someone who gets lots of minutes for maybe a mid-table team in those sorts of leagues. I'm not necessarily he's someone who's going to be a first-team player for us, but is there more benefit in playing him than playing Nasser Giga? For me, yes, because Nasser Giga isn't a Rangers contracted player; he's a loan player, and I think John Souttar does that job better than what Nasser Giga does for us. So if we can keep John Souttar fit, then I would prefer to see Souttar in there rather than Nasser Giga. And then you maybe rotate between Manny Fernandez and Shala as the other player alongside him. But we do need to sort out what's happening with John Souttar because he's out of contract at the end of the season anyway. I think we will retain him, but that's not signed as of yet. So we'll need to wait and see on that one. But would I be surprised in another defender coming in? No. The Mbayamba links are growing, the Volendam defender. He's someone who I think we like, but again, there's a few teams that like him, so whether we get that one across the line or not, we'll wait and see.
Another thing I want to get your thoughts on. Let me see. I think Gary put it in there. If I can get it up. Can't believe we have loaned Lyle Cameron to Aberdeen. Anywhere would have been fine, but Aberdeen. What's your thoughts on that? I know a lot of the supporters aren't happy with Lyle Cameron going there. I think especially after their fans throwing things at players and the disgusting things that we're talking about the 66 and stuff, which we know unfortunately it's something that they seem to do, which needs to be eradicated. But I think the support, it's a good move footballing wise. I think, obviously Aberdeen, decent sized club, it'll be a bit of pressure there, but obviously for the old rivalry reasons, people just don't want them to go there. I think if you looked at when Aberdeen obviously put it up yesterday, last night that they'd signed him, and obviously the comments were crazy from the Aberdeen supporters. They don't want him there, blah blah blah. But what do you think? I think he's a good enough young player. He's young. He's done it before for Dundee in the Scottish division. But would you prefer to have seen him going somewhere else, or are you happy enough that he's going to get minutes at Aberdeen?
It's difficult because we've almost set him up to fail by sending him to Aberdeen, because it's quite clear that a lot of, or certainly the vocal minority of Aberdeen support have quite clearly made their mind up about him just by the fact that he's a Rangers player, rather than actually looking at what he is. Now, if he'd gone there straight from Dundee in the summer, they'd have been delighted and they'd have bitten their hand off for Lyle Cameron to be an Aberdeen player. But because he's coming from us, then it's a different kettle of fish. And you can probably count on one hand the number of successful players that have been at Aberdeen that have came from Rangers, and certainly over the last kind of 15, 20 years. But if you go back the way players like Jim Bett, for example, was a very successful Aberdeen player that had history of being a Rangers player. But it's something that has grown arms and legs over the course of the last kind of 20 years. Social media is a bit of a minority, and whether or not the people that are bumping their gums about it actually go ahead and do something about it for him up there. But if he does the goods for Aberdeen and gets them into top six, for example, and gets them away from the relegation zone, then it's probably a decent move from an Aberdeen perspective. I don't think Lyle Cameron's got a long-term future at Rangers. I don't think he's big enough. You see the players that we've brought in midfield, the likes of Chukwani, they've got physical presence. Lyle Cameron doesn't have that. And that's part of the reason why he's not seen very many minutes under Danny Rule, because you've got midfield players like Connor Barron, like Nico Rashkin, who are not the biggest, not the tallest, but they've got energy, they've got the ability to get in and around the park, and that's not Lyle Cameron's game. Lyle Cameron's game is kind of getting into the box late, but he's someone who's a bit more of a between the lines player, and I think Darry Rowell's decided that he wants someone there that's got a bit more presence about him. Now, if he goes up there and does the business for them in games against the likes of Hearts or Celtic and maybe gets a draw in a game against one of them, for example, then it's win-win for us. But do you expect Lyle Cameron to be a Rangers player next season? No. Do you expect him to be an Aberdeen player next season? Maybe. But we certainly don't owe Aberdeen any favours.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said there, guys. Just another one. I've seen this even on our own page there over on Facebook and stuff. A lot of ones maybe looking at the likes of Nathan Patterson back. What would be your thoughts on that, guys? Or do you think that ship is sailed? Or I know he's had injuries and stuff, but I think there's a possibility he will be moving. He maybe be another one to maybe go to Serie A or something, because obviously that's Serie A just loves the Scottish talent at the minute, and they've been bringing them. A lot of them have actually been very successful in the Serie A. It seems to be a good league that suits them. But with the Rangers do have the money, and obviously we are going to be looking for a right back eventually with Tav. We've got Tav there at the minute. We've got Sterling who can play there, who's never really fit, unfortunately. And when he is fit, you're always waiting for him to break down. And obviously, Aaron's, it hasn't worked out too much for him, and he's a lone send. So it's something that we're going to have to sort out. But is Nathan Patterson the answer? Do you think we'll go somewhere, maybe look somewhere different?
Listen, Nathan Patterson's an excellent footballer, but kind of like Duhion Sterling, he's not reliable, and someone that you can count your hat on is going to be fit, like Tav has been for us, game on game. Now, if we were able to get someone with Nathan Patterson's skill set with Tav's durability, then that's who we want to play right back for us going into next season. I don't think now we can have any more loans, so it would be dependent on maybe a Giga or a Max Aaron's loan being terminated to be able to bring in another loan player. But he's another one that even if you bring him in, I'm not convinced that he's going to be fit and to play enough games between now and the end of the season. Is he a better player than Max Aaron's? Absolutely. Is he a better player than Duhion Sterling at right back? Probably. But he's someone that I think will probably go to La Liga. Sevilla, very, very strong interest in Nathan Patterson. I did a podcast on the Fourth Official at the beginning of the season with Mike Richards from the Unholy Trinity Everton podcast, and that was speaking about Kevin Thelwell at the time, but we spoke a lot about Nathan Patterson during that podcast, and at that time he said he would have sent Nathan Patterson up to Rangers in the summer rather than Rangers bringing in Max Aarons, for example, and I think that might have happened, but now given how little football he's played this season, it's not one for me. Albeit, if he was to come back, he's another kind of homegrown player, a bit like Rory Wilson at Aston Villa, who we've seen kind of whispers about that as another player that Rangers might be looking at again, maybe for the summer, because he's came through the academy. He's one obviously for European squads, so we don't have a huge amount of ingrown talent. Finlay Curtis is pretty much the only one that's there just now. Liam Kelly, obviously a squad player, but you see the stagnation in players like Leon King and Bailey Rice, then another player who's been through the market. And I think that's why someone like Ross McCrory, I think to me, would have been really, really exciting to have brought in before he signed his new deal at Bristol City, because he's someone that I think would have automatically enhanced, but he's got that durability, he's got that ability to play every game for us. And for me, he would have been who I'd have had as Tav's successor in the summer. But yeah, but that will cost us now, I think, to bring in Ross McCrory, because his deal's now not up in the summer.
And what's your thoughts on Tav, guys? Now we know, if I could put up a post on our page now, and the infighting would go on probably for 2 weeks, and who loves Tav, who doesn't, and who thinks he's been amazing, and others think he can't defend, and that's always been the argument. But what's your thoughts on Tav? Maybe even I'm just talking about Tav now. there's talk of he could maybe go to Panathinaikos, maybe in a pre-contract. I don't know if that would maybe suit him. We've seen other Rangers players going out there recently and enjoying themselves out there. I think isn't it Balogun and Goldson are both out there, aren't they, in Greece? And
They're both Cyprus.
Or Cyprus, sorry.
They're in Cyprus. Cyril Dessers at Panathinaikos.
That's correct, yeah.
They're obviously managed by Rafa Benitez, which is interesting. Whether he's there for the long haul or not, you'd probably doubt. But I think there's always going to be interest in Tav, particularly in Tav as a free contract. And we've posted before on the Fourth Official about Tav, particularly the last kind of 2 summers where there's been interest from Saudi in Tav, and for whatever reason, probably family main reasons, is why he stayed in Glasgow. But Tav is on a very, very lucrative contract at Rangers, upwards of 30 grand a week just now, as would be fitting for the captain of the club. Going into next season, you can't rely on a 34-year-old James Tavernier as being your starting right back to play 3 games a week between European games, qualifiers, league games, because we've seen that this season the regression in Tav's legs. He can't do that anymore. Now, if you could get Tav to commit to half in his contract and playing every other game and being a rotation option, playing maybe your League Cup games, playing your home games against your Livingstons and your St Mirrens and those type of games, then maybe you keep him around for consistency basis, because there's going to be some changes obviously to that back line anyway next year. But you don't go into next season as Tav as your starting captain and as your starting right back for me.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. You can see that it's struggling now, because his game, obviously, we know, defensively not always great, but he offered you so much going forward that, you had to keep him in the team at times. But it's like, if you can't get up the pitch now and offer that, but as you say, maybe if he's not playing as many games and he's fresher, there's games where he maybe could do that again, it just as and when's needed, rather than
but
always,
you
but
don't
he's
have
never been injured too, which has been good.
No.
He's always been available. That's the
But I
thing.
think the thing with Tav, and this is something that Davey Edgar says an awful lot over in Heart and Hand, is as much as he's only 33, because he doesn't miss games, there's so much mileage, so many miles in the tank. So I think that's the thing with modern football is to kind of not look at the age of the player, but it's how many games they've played, how many 90 minutes have they played, because Tav's someone that doesn't even play a lot of games and then gets substituted after 60 minutes, for example, like some players who've got long careers that don't play every game. Tav's been 90 minutes every game for best part 50 games a season for the last 6-7 years for us, which is phenomenal, but it's taken a toll on his legs. And I think that's the thing with Tav, is that I think if we get to the end of this season and we get this championship, then that could be the perfect kind of swan song for him to kind of bow out waving that final league title for us, and then you can properly celebrate him and say, right, what a player he's been for us for 200 grand. Should he have won more trophies in his time? Absolutely. But if he goes out winning the league this year, then that might be quite good for him to go, right, you know what, I'll go out on a high.
Yeah. We'll say, well, we'll end the last 15 minutes, so we'll have a chat about the title race coming up. Obviously, saw they were a bit of a basket case there for a while with Nancy coming in. It was a bit of a disaster. Obviously, now they've Martin O'Neill, we'll have to be honest here, he shrewd character, knows what he's at. Maybe I don't think they're getting all the backing that the Celtic fans want, obviously, for the window, but he's going to be a tough cookie. He knows how to win games in Scotland. He's been there, he's done it. We've got a Hearts team there that are very good. They're adding quite well in the window. We've seen the players that they brought in the start of the season, Braga and all, they're really good in this division. But I know they've had a few injuries as well. I think it's Cammy Delvin's got an injury, which is he's their Connor Barron, really. He's in there, he's fighting, he's got the dig, and he's an engine. So that'll be hard for them, I think. But I don't think Hearts are going anywhere either. Rangers are going to have to be really put the foot to the paddle and big games against them to come at Tynecastle. Ibrox first and Tynecastle probably in the split.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to be really on the ball here, because this Hearts team, we keep saying they'll fail, they'll fall away, but it doesn't seem like they're going anywhere anytime soon.
No, and nor should they, because they've stood the test of time this season. They've won the big games. Let's say that they beat us twice, they beat Celtic twice, so they deserve to be there. They're there on merit, and I don't think anyone can begrudge them the fact that they're there. Now, as I said right at the start of this, Hearts don't have that been there, done that mentality. A lot of the players have came in haven't got experience of winning leagues before or getting over the line. Derek McInnes hasn't got that experience of winning championships. So, given the fact that they play Celtic next weekend before we play Dundee, that's going to be a really, really interesting game because something's got to give there that will be in Rangers' benefit, whether it's both drop points or one of them drop points. But all we can do just now is look after ourselves and what we will
Yeah,
be. If Rangers win every game between now and the end of the season, Rangers win the title. And I think
yeah,
that's what we've got to look at and not pay too much attention to what's happening, certainly across the city. But if Rangers keep winning, the noise across the city will continue to get louder and louder and louder, and that can only be in our benefit. So that's all we can do is just to continue to look after ourselves, win our games, and the rest will kind of look after itself.
yeah, 100%. And as I say, it's good to see. I think what's going to help us, not just the signings, because it may take time. I know we're all expecting everyone to be great from the first minute, and we hope that is the case. But it is going to take probably a wee while, just to get the learn the game in Scotland. As we know, some people take it straight away, some people take a wee while, but it's good to see the likes of you were talking there about likes of Osgard and stuff coming on the game. I know, I mean, these guys now are maybe the ones that we're going to really need to help us push on. The likes of Mioski. He done okay. He was doing well there, scored a nice goal in Europe and stuff, and then we bit of a purple patch, unfortunately, that injury, and then it's what sort of scuppered him a wee bit. But the likes of Chermiti, what's your thoughts on him, Gaz? I say he got some stick, a lot of it, like, but he started to play well, started to use his physicality and stuff at the start. A few games before the Celtic game, we're starting to go, hold on, the big man's starting to, he's keeping the ball, he's bringing others into play, he's doing well, just needs to add the goals now. Then he
Yeah,
a brilliant display away from home at the Parkhead to get 2 goals, and obviously his confidence is going to be high. Do you think he can be the big that was the two of them, if Mioski and Chimney can be the two strikers we need to try and get us over the line, because we do lack goals.
we do, and I think that's part of the reason, obviously, why Skov Olsen's came in, is to probably give us a bit more of a threat going forward in terms of chance creation. And I think that's been part of the problem with our strikers this season is that we haven't made enough chances to score goals, let alone score enough goals. So Chermiti for me is a difficult one. He came in obviously with a huge price tag, which I think is overinflated because of the market that he came from, and I think he was guilty by association because everyone was really unhappy with Kevin Thelwell at the time, and the Chermiti deal was pretty much the straw that broke the back with regards to Kevin Thelwell for the vast majority of the support because it stunk. It was money laundering to the highest degree from that. Now that's not Chermiti's fault because he's
Yeah,
just came in to do a job and he showed at Parkhead that he actually has got some attributes that can be successful in this league. He's got, and I think again that's kudos to Danny Rule is that he's looked at, well, what can you do as opposed to what can't you do, and playing to his strengths in there. And I think if we've got the likes of a Gassama or a Mikey Moore who's really come onto a game under Danny Rule and a Scove Wilson in and around Chermiti, whilst Chermiti might not end the season with 20 goals, Rangers might get more goals because of Chermiti being there in his
yeah,
presence, and he might not necessarily be the one that will put it into the back of the net. But as long as someone puts it in the back of the net, I couldn't really care. Um, and I think that's the bit that's been missing from last year is that we didn't have a Sherney or an Egaman that was there to get the goals when Cyril Dessers wasn't scoring. So we've shared the goals around, and thankfully we've been able to get goals from set pieces and things this year. But do I think Shamiti will get goals between now and end of the season? Yes. Do I expect him to go on a purple patch where he's scoring every week? No, because I don't think that's his
mm,
game. But I also don't think it's Majovski's game to play one up top either. So I think Majovski is going to have to deal with being a kind of a finisher, someone who to come in and out the team, play the last 20 minutes or whatever, or be a bit of a kind of penalty box poacher when defences are getting a bit more tired because they've been given a run around from Big Chermiti. So it's, I think we've got the right attributes there, but it's all going to come down to the players doing the right things.
Yeah. And then, guys, sort of, well, a few things we'll chat about the last 10 minutes, but I would like your thoughts on Mikey Moore, obviously a good young player. Do you think that there's a possibility of maybe having him again on loan next season?
Oh,
Or
you'd bite your hand off for him back again because he's got all the right things. Now, I don't think he's been consistent enough for us this season for the ability he's got, because he's flitted in and out of games. But again, where he's really stood up for me has been kind of last half hour or so. I thought he was excellent. Second half at Parkhead, first half at Parkhead, I'd have taken him off at half time because he was so ineffectual. He does need to bulk up a bit. He can sometimes just get pushed off the ball a little bit too easily. Final decision making can get better, but he's a young lad. He's 17. He's not got an awful lot of football in his locker. So I think it would be mutual beneficial for him to continue to get games every week because I don't think he's at a level just now where he's going to get a game for Spurs every week now down in the Premiership. I know Spurs think very, very highly of him, but do they see enough development in him in his time at Ibrox to give him back next year? Possibly. And I think if we're playing Champions League next year, then that becomes probably a much more attractive proposition for Mikey Moore to come back.
yeah, no, that'll be one. That'll definitely be one to watch out for because, as you say, at the start, people were like, "Nah, no chance. Get Curtis on. He's useless." You know what? But that's Ibrox. That's the pressure. But I like what Danny Rose says. Basically, when he came in to now, the shirt seems a lot lighter for players. Even the likes of Max Aarons, who hasn't got much game time under Danny Rose. Remember at the very start when Max Aarons was asked, "What do you think of the new gaffer?" and he says, "Look, I'm excited, loving his ideas." You seen a wee buzz even in him, and it's he's definitely give the squad a shot in the arm. It's as if he's given them this confidence to be able to, as you say, let's work on your strengths and the
Absolutely.
weaknesses we can sort out over time.
It's back to basic stuff, and it's let's do what you're good at rather than trying to do something that we know you're not good at. Which was what Russell Martin did because he was so welded to we're going to play this way, even though all the evidence supported the fact that they can't do it. So we wasted an awful lot of time that first 3 months of the season by trying to play the Russell Martin way when we didn't actually have the players to be able to do that. And I think that's the big failing of Kevin Thelwell is that the players that he brought in weren't Russell Martin players for Russell Martin's style. And that's probably the one thing that Wilfried Nancy will look at from a Celtic perspective is that he tried to get them playing his way when they were absolutely welded to playing probably the Postecoglou way, let's be honest, let alone the Martin O'Neill way. So we need to kind of look after ourselves, look at what's in the building and say, you can do this, so go and do that. And as long as we do that, then we can be better than 90% of the teams in this league. And it's then doing that week in, week out, being on a run now, that builds confidence. Any team that can go on a run between now and the end of the season and put 12 wins out of 13 together will win this title. So we've got ourselves in a conversation where we can do that. But it's all from now. What's happened in the past is almost gone now. It's got us back in the conversation, but it all starts again next week against Dundee, and it's how we handle the fact that both us and Celtic have got now 2 midweeks in a row where we've got European games on the Thursday night before playing on the Sunday. Hearts obviously don't have European football, so that's a benefit to them to be able to have a week in between where we've got European games, and obviously we're out now of the Europa League. So whether you don't prioritise those matches and you maybe use the squad a little bit and the likes of your Rothwells or your Dowells, etc., play in those sorts of games to allow your other players, obviously can't play the new players in Europe either. So I'd be interested to see what the lineup is against Ludogorets on Thursday night, because I think it might be a little bit closer to what we saw last night than what it will be next Sunday against Dundee.
Yeah, I agree. No, yeah, 100%. I think it's time just to you prioritize the league, don't you? Really, the situation, especially when you know Europe's gone. It was a terrible start for us, but it is what it is. But listen, if you're lifting the league title today and nobody cares about how the start of the league was, nobody cares how poor we were in Europe this year. It's every one of us is thinking, right, we've won the league. That's all that's important.
Yeah, probably apart
Last thing,
guys that have signed up to go to Porto, they probably care, but they'll enjoy that trip no matter what, whether we're winning,
of
losing,
course,
or whatever. Now, on paper, should we beat Ludogorets at Ibrox? Yeah, of course we should, but we should have also beat some of the other teams that we've had in this group stage, and we've made a backside of it for one reason or another. So we've been better than most in Europe over the last 4 or 5 seasons. I think we're allowed a bad one, but we
yeah.
going into next year, if it's Champions League, we're going to have to be a lot more streetwise than what we've been this season.
Yep. And the last thing I'll ask you guys, say we get in the defender, you think we might get in defender, could possibly a midfielder, we'll see what happens. But say if we get in everyone, that Danny Rose happy with, if say something come up in the last day of the window, something that Rangers went, oh, do you think there's a chance Rangers could maybe go, hold on, we weren't expecting that one to pop up, but it's a good player we've been offered, they could go for it, or do you think they'll get the positions they want, for now and just say that's it? Or, I'm just saying if someone did pop up and was offered, at the last minute, do you think the money would be there to go, oh, well, listen, it's one would be good?
I don't think money is going to be the issue. I think they've shown that with what they've spent so far, that they'll spend the money if the money's required and it's a player that's going to improve us. We will see what the rest of this window brings. I do think we're still a little bit light defensively, particularly given the injuries that we've got there with Sterling, because Sterling can cover a multitude of positions. So whilst I think Stuart Robbins covers that left back position now to the point where we don't need to see Max Aarons playing left back anymore, which will be very positive. He's still going to be a couple of weeks before he's going to be properly fit and able to play games. But between Robbins and Magoma, we've got enough there. All we've really got at the moment is Tav and Max Aarons playing right back. So the injury to Sterling does concern me a little bit. I think Suter and Fernandez has done brilliant, but he's still very raw in terms of what he brings to the table. He's got moments of madness in him, but he's a massive threat in the opposition box as well. So I think he's someone that can be cultivated and grown. Giga's there as an option. You've got Derek Cornelius coming back from injury and fitness, but he's someone who, by all accounts, came back from Canada 7.5 kilos overweight. So I don't necessarily think he's a player that might be an option for us, but he's got a World Cup on home soil to try and get fit for, and that can be a massive carrot to dangle in front of players to go, well, do you want to be in that Canada World Cup squad? Well, get yourself sorted and fit, and he could be an option to play, but I've not been massively impressed by Derek Cornelius when I've seen him on the park anyway, to the point where he would be no more than a rotation option for me rather than a starter.
Yeah. Well, look, that's sort of us at the end, towards the end. Guys, I really appreciate you coming on me. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that, and you're always welcome anytime to come with us. And I think all the ones in the comments really enjoyed your chat and your insight, Nate. So thank you very much for coming on.
No, pleasure.
I've really enjoyed that, and I hope everyone that's watching, as I say, we're gonna save this recording. I'm gonna pass it over to guys so he can have it on his 4th official Patreon and stuff. So if he's, let's say, guys, if you just want to give another wee shout out to how to find you and stuff, and anyone that's maybe only watching halfway through can catch a whole show over on Gaz's Patreon.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's patreon.com/the4thofficial. As I say, upwards of 10 podcasts per month. We'd be delighted to have you on there. We've also got the YouTube channel as well, which you can find. We do things slightly differently, a bit more kind of feature-led over there rather than kind of game-led. But in terms of match-to-match coverage, transfer news, etc., you'll find that all over on our Patreon channel for $2.99 a month.
There you go, guys. And as I say, I've watched a lot of interviews, especially the YouTube as well. And Ewan Cameron one is, Ewan Cameron's just, I love it. Harchman as he is, but I just love watching him and listening to him. He's so funny.
I think he's a football man, which I think is first and foremost. And I think especially kind of in Scottish football, it's very tribal, because you can't be, if you're a Rangers fan, you can't talk about other clubs, or you can't appreciate other games or whatever. And I think, see, if you're a football fan, you can find enjoyment in most things. And I think that's what makes you and Cameron a really interesting conversation, because he's got lots of stories about lots of different things, whether it's from a Hearts perspective, Rangers perspective with Steven Gerrard, whether it's David Murray, whether it's talking about the national team. I think that there's so much to our game, and I think you've seen that this season. Scottish football is an absolute basket case at the best of times, but there's so many stories all across Scottish football, whether it's the likes of Russell Martin to Nonsay to Billy Davies leaving Morton yesterday, Hamilton Accies. There's so much going on across the pyramid, and see, when you see a proper title race rather than just a Celtic procession because everyone else has not got their shit together, that draws more eyes to the product, and that can only be a good thing for the whole of Scottish football.
Yep, 100%. And just before we go, just give it another wee shout out. Let me see. So we're wanting Rangers supporters, clubs, anyone who wants to come on, and just as I say, we're going to do an episode for each club, and it'll be singly for you guys, whoever wants to come on, whatever club you are. We've got I think it's next Friday, we've got the Ted McMinn Loyal coming on, so there's going to be a representative for them to chat about their supporters club, just about the favorite memories, travel you have done, and how your clubs are going, and the good work you do in your local communities and stuff. This is stuff that there's so many Rangers sports clubs doing amazing work, and it doesn't always get highlighted. And we want to do that here for you. So if you message us on the Facebook or the X, we'll get you on, and we'll just chat about wax lyrical about your own supporters club. But thank you very much, guys, I say, for coming on. Really appreciate that. Great chat. Thank you for everyone in the comments, and everyone became members and donated to the page. Really appreciate that. Me and Baz will be back with you on Monday to chat all things Rangers, and it's good. We're going to have a smile on our face because we've already won a game. We don't need to panic. The game's over. It's won, and we'll look forward to the European game coming up on Thursday. But as I say, me and Baz will be with you. Thank you from myself and from Gaz, and we'll be with you again very soon. Cheers.